Rain and snow here across the state with travel impacts possible for tomorrow morning. What to expect for your commute.
It has been nearly 9 months since a Utah teen was killed by his father in a murder-suicide in Salt Lake.
There's not one day that goes by that I don't think about
what the teen's mother is doing now to try and prevent this from happening to someone else.
Tiny homes built in your backyard. One Utah city says it's the solution to the affordable housing crisis. But others warn this idea will only open Pandora's box. A Utah County family says a bus driver's discipline of their son was way over the line. Tonight, how they're fighting back. And how a Utah man used his drone to take more than just pictures and videos. How it got him out of a bad situation and started a new friendship.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Our top story tonight is the weather. We're tracking a strong storm moving through parts of Utah right now. Let's go right to Utah's Weather Authority, Allison Krogan. Allison?
Hey, tomorrow morning going to be a tough drive for some of you, especially along the higher passes of southern Utah. So we're tracking right now valley rain and mountain snowfall. Storm is starting in the south and it will become more widespread as we have into the overnight hours and into tomorrow morning. So right now quite a bit of snow coming down near Zion National Park up through Bryan Head over towards Bryce Canyon up through Boulder as we look at the bigger picture here across the state. A lot of this precipitation is near I-70 even near Salina. We've got some snow currently coming down on the roads. Into northern Utah we're looking at valley rain, mountain snowfall, and then we will shift into more of a northwesterly flow come tomorrow later in the day, and we're going to get some potentially bigger totals up at the top of the cottonwoods. So your main weather headlines right now, it was breezy and mild today. Rain and snow in the forecast along with travel impacts, especially for our higher passes here over the next couple of days. And we're going to see that rain and snow becoming a bit more widespread across the state heading into our overnight hours. We'll keep in the 40s through much of the night with that cloud cover out there as you wake up tomorrow morning. Could have some slick roads for your morning drive, but looking at mostly valley rain, mountain snowfall for the beginning of the system. And then again later tomorrow into Saturday, we could see that transitioning to snow, even for some valleys. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a bit.
Allison, thank you. Tonight we are hearing from a Utah mother whose teen son was killed by his father in a murder-suicide last May. Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold shows us that mother is now working with lawmakers to make sure something like this doesn't happen again.
There's not one day that goes by that I don't think about and how loving he was.
This is Leah Moses.
He was incredibly kind.
Speaking about her 16-year-old son, Ohm.
We were so close. You know, we had a custody evaluation that had just come out that the kids were going to be able to be with me full time, and then he was gone.
It was Mother's Day weekend last year that Moses got the news no parent ever wants to receive. Salt Lake City police found Ohm and his father, 49-year-old Parth Gandhi, dead inside this office complex. It was determined that Gandhi, a local neuropsychologist, killed his son before ultimately taking his own life. Court records that date back about 15 years showed a lengthy custody battle beginning when Moses filed for divorce in 2009. While that was finalized in 2014, the fight over custody continued for years.
I really believe that if the statutes were stronger and if they were followed the way that they should be followed, that Ohm would be standing here with me right now.
Now Moses is working with lawmakers on House Bill 272, known as Ohm's Law.
When he was really young, about 5 years old, was the first time he asked me, when do the kids get a chance to talk? And I feel like now this bill in some ways is a way that he can actually speak out.
On Thursday, Moses told Fox 13 News there are 4 parts to this legislation. That includes limiting expert testimony in family court to qualified and credentialed professionals and implementing guidance and limits on family court's use of reunification treatment.
But I think the most important part is the increased training for judicial personnel so that people who are involved in the court system, the decision makers, have a better understanding of what domestic violence is and what coercive control is, how to really identify safe parents.
So the bill gives some additional directions to the court that they must consider the child's safety before trying to resolve other problems.
Representative Paul Cutler is the bill's sponsor. He says they use the Keeping Children Safe from Family Violence Act, or Caden's Law, as a reference point for this bill.
What we've done is focused on Utah and how we adapt best practices from other parts of the country to make our Utah courts better and provide improved safety for our kids.
While there is still plenty of pain for Moses nearly 9 months after her son was killed, she says she's grateful for the support she has received in trying to make this legislation happen.
I can't think of anything actually more that could honor Ohm more than to have his name on something that would help protect children.
Well, House Bill 272 was originally set to be heard in the House Judiciary Committee on Friday. However, that hearing was postponed. Representative Cutler tells me it is now scheduled to be heard next Thursday, February 8th. On the Hill, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Former Utah Attorney General Jan Graham has died. She was the first and so far only woman to hold that office. She served from 1993 to 2001 and was the last Democrat to hold statewide office. But she was a significant political figure, winning re-election in this red state. Under Graham's administration, children's justice centers were created to be a safe place for children who are victims of crime. She also created the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. Both live on to this day. Moments ago, I reached former state senator and fellow Democrat Scott Howell, who was at a Jazz game. He talked about Jan Graham's contributions to law and order.
And one of the things that we always appreciated about Jan is that she would not let you go around the law. The law was in place and you obeyed the law. I can tell you one thing, for sure, Heaven gained somewhat of law and order. I'm sure she's following every rule that there is and making sure that it's enforced up there.
Howell says Graham had fought ovarian cancer for several years. He says her family was with her when she passed away last weekend in St. George. Funeral services have yet to be announced. A family is suing the Alpine School District after they say a bus driver sat on their son who has breathing difficulties. The parents tell Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Bree why they want to see a change in how students with special needs are treated.
Steve and Annie Zolman say their son was born with a rare birth defect that gave him a low chance of surviving.
He was in the NICU for 90 days. He was on life support for 24. It was a real harrowing kind of up and down experience.
Over the years, their mostly nonverbal son has progressively gotten better, but still struggles with breathing.
We were really excited about getting him into more of a normal setting where he could go to school. And one of those exciting things was riding the bus.
Until 2 years ago, when he came off the bus, traumatized.
He was really distraught. He was very upset. He was crying. He just seemed extremely stressed.
The parents say they went to talk to the bus driver about what happened, who told them she had sat on him because their child was misbehaving.
The bus driver said, yeah, I was restraining at him. I had to sit on him.
Horrified, Steve and Annie brought their concerns to the school district.
You have a human that's well over 4 times his size that is leaving all of their weight on him and compressing his chest and making it difficult for him to even breathe normally is very traumatizing.
Annie says the school district finally showed them the security footage from that day after the district reviewed it first.
What we saw as far as the verbal abuse and then the escalation to the physical abuse was absolutely traumatizing. It was very disturbing to see, and it shocks me that anybody would have watched that and said, this is fine.
In their lawsuit, the Zolmans argue that the district failed to protect their son from abuse and by not immediately firing the driver who hurt him, allowed the abuse to continue.
Our real hope is that school becomes a place for special needs kids where they can be excited, where they love to go, where they get the same kind of budget that other kids get and the same opportunities to advance, because these kids are some of the most amazing.
In a statement to Fox 13 News, Kimberly Bird with the Alpine School District wrote, quote, "The district does not comment on open or ongoing matters of litigation." Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
He was an individual who left a Grand Canyon-sized impact on the world.
Coming up, the sister of a young man who died while trying to take pictures at a southern Utah overlook speaks to Fox 13 News. Plus, we'll explain how some first responders cope with tragedy in the wake of the recent incident in American Fork Canyon.
Almost 4 years after he ordered his canine to bite a man who had his hands up while on one knee, a Salt Lake City police officer gets to tell his side of the story.
The Jazz back in their own crib tonight. Can they take advantage of the Sixers?
A memorial has been placed at the site where 19-year-old Jonathan Fielding fell to his death while trying to take pictures near Moonscape Overlook in Hanksville over the weekend. His sister tells Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule she wants everyone to know no view is worth your life.
We loved him more than anything else in this world.
If it involved adventure, it had Jonathan Fielding's name written all over it.
He loved hiking. Like every single weekend that he was off of work, he was out there finding places. And for Christmas, I actually got him a national park pass.
Last weekend, Jonathan went on his final adventure, where he spent his last minutes doing what he loved, hiking and taking pictures.
He had a true talent. Like his photographs were unbelievable. He was going to have such a big career in front of him.
Jonathan's sister, Rebecca Fielding, says Jonathan and some friends were near Moonscape Overlook when he climbed down to a ledge, lost his balance, and fell 150 feet before rolling another 150 feet. He died on impact.
One of the only small comforts of this is that he died on impact and he didn't feel any pain, and he probably didn't have time to register really what was happening.
Rebecca says her brother was the kind of person who put everyone before himself.
He was not very prepared for camping, and so I offered him my sleeping bag and my sleeping pad because I was going to be a whole lot warmer in my car, but he refused to take them, and he slept outside. He did not want to make anyone else uncomfortable for his sake.
As Rebecca thinks about the talkies,
he loved talkies. Growing up, we were like obsessed with them.
Spider-Man plushie.
We had so many good conversations about the movies.
Plastic baby.
It's an inside joke for us.
And journal she placed near the site of her brother's death.
The last sentence that I wrote was, he was an individual who left a Grand Canyon-sized impact on the world.
She hopes people will remember no view is worth your life in memory of her baby brother.
It is so easy to misjudge a place, to misjudge a cliff, and all it takes is one wrong step, and you lose everything.
Darian DeBrule, Fox 13 News, Utah.
A GoFundMe page has been set up for Jonathan's family. We have a link to it at fox13now.com.
It's the worst part of the job to have to come down and tell somebody that we've located something, we know they're deceased, and we believe it's what it is in the situation. It's just hard.
There comes a time when even heroes need to be rescued. Yesterday, crews found the body of a woman reported missing in American Fork Canyon, and we could see the impact it had on those hoping for a better outcome. Fox 13 News reporter Lucy Nelson looked into how search and rescue crews cope in these types of situations.
When we first get the call, we're always hopeful.
But it's hard for hope not to turn into dread when hours of searching for a missing 19-year-old girl in American Fork Canyon turn into days with still no answer.
Okay, it's been cold out. She's been out for 1 to 2 nights already. It's hard not to have those thoughts of, okay, this might be more of a recovery than a rescue.
Unfortunately, a recovery mission became a reality for Sergeant Dallin Turner and around 40 other search and rescue volunteers with the Utah County Sheriff's Office when they found McKenna Miner's body Wednesday morning. This isn't the first tragic rescue mission these men and women have had to respond to, and it won't be the last.
A lot of these guys have been doing this volunteer work for, 10, 15, 20 plus years, and they've seen a lot of different rescues and a lot of different outcomes, and it's hard for that to not, put a toll on them and their mental health.
Turner says in the past few years, there's been a healthy shift in focusing on coping resources for responders like his team.
We're trying to join that change of, emotions aren't as scary as everybody thinks they are, and it's okay to show emotion.
which is what Sergeant Turner did in front of our cameras on Wednesday.
I briefly spoke to the family, as you could imagine. Right now it's, sorry.
He had to make the heartbreaking call to McKenna's family, which he says is the hardest part of the job.
You know, I just kind of broke down thinking of, well, what if that was me that was getting that news?
He says it's so important for him to talk to people who understand. Turner is one of 4 trained peer support members at the Utah County Sheriff's Office.
We can provide them with the resources to just sit, have somebody to listen, and just let them vent their frustrations or vent their emotions, or just to talk about it to help process.
He says it also never hurts to check in on those you know in the career.
A lot of us get into it because it's the big, we're the guys, we're the heroes going in, and we're the tough guys, and we're saving people and serving people and helping people, but a lot of times those guys are the ones that just need somebody to reach out.
A GoFundMe page was created for McKenna Minor, which you can find on our website. It says all funds will be used for funeral expenses or donated to the Utah County Sheriff's Office search and rescue team, who they say worked tirelessly for 2 days to find McKenna. In Spanish Fork, Lucy Nelson, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Well, we're tracking 2 different storms. The first one is here across the state. It's going to be becoming a bit more widespread as we head into the overnight hours. Here's what it looks like at Deer Valley, Bald Mountain. We can normally see down towards Highway 40, but you can see some low visibility here. And we head into the next couple of days, and we are going to end up with areas of valley rain and mountain snowfall, and potentially seeing those snow levels falling down to the valley floors as well before everything is said and done. So winter alerts, winter weather advisories for the central and northern mountains with this storm. We are likely going to see our biggest travel impacts highlighted in pink, where we have a winter storm warning through Saturday. So these are all in place already. Travel could be very difficult at times. We've been checking the UDOT cameras across I-15 in southern Utah. Things are looking pretty good still, but roads are slick right now. As we look in St. George on our camera, you can see the wet roads right there. Light wind in St. George, 47 right now. For Salt Lake City, we've got temperature of 51 degrees. So it's actually cooler down in St. George than it is here in northern Utah right now. They're getting hit first, and we are going to be seeing that precipitation becoming a bit more widespread as we head into the overnight hours. And for tomorrow morning, those higher passes could become difficult at times, especially across southwest and south central Utah. Temperatures right now across the state, we've got 30s for Cedar City, but still about 45 to 50 for Provo, Salt Lake, Ogden. Logan, 36 degrees right now. Here's where we're tracking our rain and snow currently. Across southwest Utah, we've got snow coming down. Boulder Pass has been tough today through Escalante down towards Bryan Head. We have seen quite a bit of snow coming down. Heavy at times with our precipitation as it started to fill in today, and then across northern Utah. We're also seeing some areas of wet roads through Tooele County, up along the Wasatch Front, Cache Weaver, Davis, Salt Lake counties. Going to see that chance for some rain to fill in tonight. And then we get into tomorrow morning, and our temperatures really won't be that bad here across northern Utah because we've got a lot of cloud cover expected and across the state. So we've got temperatures in the forecast, 6 a.m. right around 40 degrees. So our snow levels are still pretty high, probably close to about 7,000 feet tomorrow morning for the northern mountains, maybe dropping to about 6,800 feet for the first part of tomorrow morning. And then we are going to see precipitation chances for Salt Lake, Provo, and Ogden pretty consistent throughout the day. So starting at about 2 a.m., numerous to widespread showers for the Wasatch Front continuing throughout the day tomorrow. And then what we're tracking with still some uncertainty right now will be a shift from more of this southerly warm flow into more of an upper atmosphere northwest flow that is going to produce some less dense snow. It's really heavy snow, and that's why we have some avalanche concerns across the southern mountains heading into Friday and Saturday. But then we'll see a shift tomorrow, and that shift will determine if we end up seeing that snow here in Salt Lake and how much precipitation is left out of the storm when we see that shift. So we still have some question marks regarding how much snow we could see here in Salt Lake, or whether or not it's going to be mostly rain with just a little bit of snow mixing in. For St. George, 48 tomorrow, 54 on Saturday. More chances for rain with a follow-up storm next week. Again, getting some atmospheric river moisture in for the Wasatch Front. Mid-40s tomorrow, 42 on Saturday. Still a chance for some lingering snow. We'll talk more about that storm next week and potential snow totals coming up in just a bit.
Allison, thank you. Coming up, a Cache Valley builder is going to great lengths to restore a 1950s era gas station. we'll take you there. And we'll get a taste of the award-winning chocolate that students at Utah State are cooking up. Welcome back. A Cache Valley builder is going to great lengths to restore a 1950s era gas station to its original form. But there won't be any gas sold or car repairs going on there. A floral shop has set up instead. Tony Johnson and his construction development company have been working for a while to bring an old Sinclair gas station back to its old glory. This historic restoration project is one of several in Logan that Johnson has taken on over the last 15 years. Now, flower shop owner Haley Larson has leased the space and has a deep respect for its history.
To me, that just holds so much more soul, and that's really important to me. We've been looking for a new space for a little bit because the current space is pretty small.
For being from Logan, I got to buy flowers on occasion. You know, I'd love to come here and buy them for her. So,
Larson hopes to be more than just a floral shop, with plans on making her new store a community gathering space. In Logan today, a school project came to a delicious ending. Students at American One English Schools read the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory today by Roald Dahl. Then they each designed their own unique chocolate bar and voted on the winner, which was poured today at the Aggie Chocolate Factory. It's the third year of this competition, but the first with adult students.
Everybody connects with chocolate. Everybody connects with the book even. It's not really a book just for kids. It's a well-written book that adults and kids connect with. And then adding in chocolate to it, everybody connects with that. And then coming up here to the chocolate factory, it makes it real and fun for everybody.
Griselda Arzaluz created the winning bar. It's a mix of dark chocolate and pistachios. The trials continue for two Salt Lake City police officers, one accused of assault for ordering his canine partner to bite a man who was surrendering. Another accused of intentionally crushing someone with his car. Both testified today.
A man used his drone to take more than pictures and videos. How it started a special friendship.
And it's always golf weather at Pebble Beach. How would the Tony Finau Ryan Smith tandem fare at today's Pro-Am?
I'm Fox 13 investigative reporter Nate Carlisle. The Salt Lake City police officer on trial for aggravated assault took the witness stand in his defense today. Nicholas Pierce in 2020 ordered his canine, Tuco, to bite a man who had his hands up while on one knee.
Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give in this case now before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Thank you, sir. You may take the stand. He needed to be arrested and taken into custody for the protection of his family, for the protection of officers and the general public. At that moment, when I saw him at the wall, it confirmed my suspicion that he was probably going to try to flee. At that moment, I decided that the safest way to take him into custody was going to be with the use of Tuco.
I'm on the ground! I'm on the ground! Why are you biting me?
I gave Tuco the command of hit, which is a trained command for biting.
Pierce and two other officers were responding to a report of a domestic assault.
Police department, get on the ground!
Jeffrey Ryans was not charged with a violent crime for anything that happened that night, but did plead guilty to violating a protective order banning him from the home. Under cross-examination, a prosecutor questioned whether the situation was as dangerous as Pierce contended.
So the domestic part of this has de-escalated. He once was, in theory, beating his wife, and now is not. Is that a fair way to put it?
Sure.
Had he taken a fighting stance?
He had not taken a fighting stance, no.
The prosecution wanted to call Salt Lake City Police Chief Mike Brown to testify about his reaction to the Pierce and Ryans video and how the chief then banned the use of canines to apprehend suspects. But the judge ruled against that, saying whether Pierce did something improper was a question for the jury. Closing arguments are expected Friday. A verdict is possible then, too. Pierce faces up to 15 years in prison if convicted. At the state courthouse in West Jordan, Nate Carlisle, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Oh my God.
A judge is preparing to decide whether a former Salt Lake police officer intentionally crushed someone with his car in Ogden. Thomas Cagle could face prison time if found guilty of aggravated assault. Fox 13 News investigative reporter Adam Herbets was at the courthouse in Ogden today.
Well, today we heard testimony from Cagle and his doctor explaining why he had anxiety medication in his system. He says he was in the middle of a panic attack. He was not drinking and that there was nothing intentional about the crash.
Their senses, it's just oh my God.
It started with a fender bender, but turned into something else, a second crash, when Officer Thomas Cagle and the victim decided to move their cars.
Oh my God.
I tried to put it in reverse immediately, and it went to neutral, but it would not go into reverse. So the only option I had at that point was to push the brake as hard as I could to make sure it doesn't go forward anymore.
At the time, Cagle was an officer with the Salt Lake City Police Department. He was off duty. After this incident, he was fired. At first, the victim said he thought Cagle was drunk because he was slurring his words.
Are you guys okay? I know you guys are upset. I'm sorry.
Cagle says he had chewing tobacco in his mouth.
Was any alcohol found in my client's system?
No, can't specify from one drug test to whether or not that person was absolutely impaired.
Instead, blood tests show he had Xanax in his system. Cagle's doctor says he prescribed it for panic attacks.
He's been a patient of mine for over a decade at least.
When officers arrived, Cagle failed his field sobriety test and was arrested. Prosecutors are asking the judge to believe the second crash was on purpose, that Cagle was angry and retaliated after the victim called 911, especially because they say his explanation of the vehicle's transmission getting stuck does not make sense.
Is it possible for the transmission to make a mistake and go into neutral rather than reverse? No, it's not. He had brakes, he had the parking brake, an explanation that is mechanically nonsense.
You cannot get it from neutral into reverse, which is the next gear, or into park without physically grabbing the shifter and pulling it towards you and then up.
The trial was supposed to finish today, but it is taking a little bit longer than expected. So instead, both sides are returning to court tomorrow at 11 o'clock. They decided not to go with a jury, so a judge will decide whether Cagle is guilty or not guilty. He faces up to 5 years in prison. Reporting in Ogden, Adam Herbets, Fox 13 News, Utah.
In developing news, a major sinkhole appeared in the front yard of a house in Sandy this afternoon. The Sandy Public Utilities Department says the 20-foot deep and 25-foot wide sinkhole is at 935 Silver Sage Drive. It was caused by a sewer line and water main break. About 34 homes were without water for a few hours this afternoon and evening, but both the water and sewer mains have been repaired and service is now restored. The Larry H. and Gail Miller Family Foundation have committed $22 million to Salt Lake City's Ballpark Next Fund. A year ago, the company announced a new privately funded ballpark for the Salt Lake Bees in downtown Daybreak in South Jordan. Ballpark Next was launched to reimagine and revitalize the ballpark neighborhood. Coming up, what's in a major bill on the Great Salt Lake that was introduced today on Utah's Capitol Hill? And Utah is facing what industry professionals are calling a child care cliff. How the legislature wants to step in. A major bill on the Great Salt Lake has been introduced and is looking to be one of the biggest efforts so far. Paradise Representative Casey Snyder is proposing some big policy shifts to help the Great Salt Lake. He wants to look at salinity levels and more money to make improvements to the Causeway berm system that helps manage salinity. The bill also looks to rewrite some of the rules over mineral extraction on the lake, suggesting that companies that have historically used a lot of water may have to learn to live with less.
The world we live in is not the same that we were in the 1960s, when the lake really wasn't that big of a deal.
Mineral extraction companies so far have yet to return messages from Fox 13 News seeking comment. Meantime, the bill will begin to move forward in the legislature. Representative Snyder is in House leadership, so the odds of its passage are very good. Child care advocates are warning state lawmakers of a significant hit to Utah families now that pandemic-era funding is running dry. The group Voices for Utah Children is among those who signed an open letter calling on state leaders to invest in child care. COVID-19 relief money was used to help cover costs, but now that money, about $400 million worth, is going away. Child care centers are being forced to raise their rates to keep opening. Some may just close, and that impacts families.
These have all been known. Families have been suffering. It's just not a problem that our state leaders have taken seriously. And I think that is going to have to end for Utah families to get any relief.
So far, lawmakers have not been funding any child care options. The Senate advanced a bill to spend $160 million on income tax cut. Meantime, Senate Minority Leader Luz Escamilla has filed a bill to turn some unused space in state offices into child care centers. Senator Escamilla's bill was just introduced and will be considered in the legislative session. Coming up, are external additional dwelling units, or ADUs, the new solution to affordable housing? We'll show you the next city considering adding more homes like this. And the unbelievable story of a man and his drone that you will only see here on Fox 13 News.
And later in sports, the Jazz finally back home after a long, grueling road trip. Plus, the owner of the Jazz teaming up with buddy Tony Finau at the breathtaking Pebble Beach. How'd they start at the Pro-Am? Back in a bit.
Right now, we're taking a live look at I-15. This is in central and southwest Utah. Some snow is coming down. I'm pleasantly surprised with how the roads are currently looking, especially for our higher passes. This is near Cove Fort, so right near I-70 through Millard County. But we head into the overnight hours, and we are going to see our precipitation becoming a bit more widespread, and these higher passes could become tricky tomorrow morning. We'll talk more about travel impacts coming up in just a bit.
Allison, thanks so much. Tough night to be outdoors. Could tiny homes in your backyard be the next best solution for the current affordable housing crisis? The city of South Salt Lake is considering allowing external additional dwelling units, or ADUs. It's residential property on your lot with a kitchen and bathroom. State code already allows internal ADUs, such as renovated basements, rented out as apartments.
A lot of times you have families that their kids are growing up and they can't afford to even rent, let alone buy. And so building an ADU on the back of a property might be a good solution to help them get off their feet.
If approved, the extra housing would be limited by height, size, and design. The owner is required to live on the property and offer on-site parking and cannot rent it out as an Airbnb. The City Council there in South Salt Lake is expected to consider taking action at its next meeting next week. Now to a story you're only going to see here on Fox 13 News. Our reporter Maithili Gooby and chief photojournalist Aaron Kimball went to Fairview today, where they met a photographer who has a unique story to tell involving snow, a drone, and a surprise.
I love photography and I love flying and things to do with flight, and so I was hooked.
Brian Telford uses his drone to take pictures of properties for sale.
It's a blast. Most of my work is in really rural areas.
He was in Fairview on Wednesday, close to the Taylor's neighborhood.
I was sitting right here, finishing up my dinner, and I had noticed that there was a couple lights through our kitchen window.
Something was in the window just staring at the family, and it freaked them out.
After about 5 or 6 seconds, I noticed it had like a flight pattern like a drone, and I was like, that's a drone out the window. Dad, there's a drone out the window.
I hurried to the door, and the only thing I could grab was my granddaughter's scooter to be able to take this drone down.
We hucked it at it, so it was kind of exciting because it was like, yes, you took it down, right? And we were totally excited. And they go out and they fetch the drone, bring it in, and then we're weirded out because there is a note attached.
Abe and Trenton picked the drone out of the snow and found a note on it that read, "Help, please."
We opened it up and he explained to us that, can you please help? I'm in my truck, stuck in the snow. I'm a wheelchair bound and cannot, I believe, back up.
Brian was coming up this hill to take pictures and videos from his drone when he got stuck in this area. He tried for about an hour to get help, and when he couldn't, that's when he sent his drone.
I just figured, hey, it's worth a shot. I think this is a good idea. So smarter than it would have been for me to try and get out.
Brian knew he would not be able to get himself into his wheelchair and pull himself out of the snow, so Abe and Trenton set out looking for him.
The fact that they were coming over, I was like, oh, this is good. I could breathe better.
They used their side-by-side and chains to pull him out of the snow.
That people are out there that will come out of their way to, come out in the dark in the snow and lend a hand.
Brian turned out to be a great guy. Of course, there's a gentleman dedicated to his craft to be able to work while, it's not easy for him to get on site and to do what he does. So to be able to help him out was very gratifying.
The scooter did not get the best of Brian's drone, and it's still flying high. After a friendship that started in the unlikeliest of ways.
Anytime I'm up here, I'm going to come by and say, hey.
Please do.
What started as a crazy situation with the best possible ending.
And I got some new friends up there.
Absolutely, yeah.
In Fairview, I am Maitili Gobi, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Can you imagine being inside your house there, out there in the middle of nowhere, and these flashing lights on a drone sitting right outside your window?
Yes, I agree. Take the scooter, take whatever you can.
You'd think you're in the middle of a Jason Bourne movie or something.
And then you see the note, and I'm still thinking, what is happening?
Oh, wow.
What a story.
Yeah, no kidding.
And creative thinking on the photographer's end.
Yes.
To be able to get that help. And
yeah.
Wow.
My goodness. Remarkable all the way around.
Crazy story. That was fantastic storytelling as well on our end. Maitli's package, really, really good there. Well, as far as snow goes, we do have some more snow in the forecast. Let's go ahead and get right to this because I know a lot of you are wondering how much snow can we expect. So from here until late in the day on Saturday, here's what we're expecting in additional amounts compared to, or in addition to what we've already seen across some areas of southern Utah where that snow's already been coming down, especially down towards Brian Head. With this storm, we are in a southwesterly flow right now. We've tapped into some atmospheric river moisture, and what that means is we are getting really heavy, dense snow. It's not that light, fluffy snow that we love and we often get here in Utah. Now tomorrow we see a shift up in the upper atmosphere into more of a northwesterly flow. And that's going to allow us to get some of that fluffier snow and potentially some big snow totals at the top of the Cottonwood Canyons. So with that being said, most mountains can expect 6 to 12 inches of snow. For northern Utah, some higher amounts possible for the top of the Cottonwood Canyons. And then down towards Brian Head, storm totals could end up being 12 to 24 inches. Bryce Canyon City picking up a couple of inches. We're already seeing snow on the roads cameras there. And we've got this just heavy, dense snow on top of some weak layers in the mountains for southern Utah. So we've got avalanche watches in effect for Friday and Saturday. Some avalanches are possible near Brian Head, not within the resort. They do have avalanche mitigation efforts, but on slopes in the backcountry right near Brian Head, that's going to be a pretty big concern as we head into Friday and Saturday. And then for tomorrow morning, we're going to maybe see some tough travel at times for our higher terrain, mainly for the mountains of southern Utah, but potentially at times here in northern Utah also. Right now along I-15, the cameras are still looking pretty good. I've been cruising up along I-15 on our UDOT cameras, and things are still looking pretty decent out there. But into the early part of tomorrow morning, it could become dicey at times. We do have some areas of rain coming down up towards Ogden, Tremont, down through Layton and through Dugway, Tooele County, right along I-80 there. And we're going to see mostly rain with our snow levels around 7,000 feet through tomorrow morning. And those could drop maybe closer to about 6,800 feet by about 5 a.m. here in northern Utah. So into tomorrow at 7 a.m., we're still close to about 40 degrees for Ogden, Salt Lake, and Provo. We head into the afternoon tomorrow, and we're going to see our temperatures still above average. So travel impacts getting into tomorrow morning. Chances for snow for many of our mountains, some areas of low visibility highlighted in orange, so we could have some areas of fog, and we could have some slick roads for the morning commute just as far as rain goes here in northern Utah tomorrow morning. And then by tomorrow afternoon, there's a chance that we see that shift, potentially in time for the evening commute, but if not during the evening commute tomorrow night, where we could see some snow mixing in down to the valley floors. St. George 48 tomorrow, another Pacific storm, another atmospheric river takes aim on the region next week. For Salt Lake, 45 tomorrow, 42 on Saturday. More chances for rain in 40s and low 50s next week.
A year ago, Lauri Markkanen became the first Jazz player to start an All-Star game in 25 years. But in a Western Conference loaded with talent, he knew it'd be tough to get selected again. The reserves announced tonight, with Markkanen unfortunately left off that list. Former Jazz guard Donovan Mitchell will represent the East. Meanwhile, the Jazz looked to sweep the season set from the 76ers. Utah went to Philly last month and won, minus Joel Embiid, the league's leading scorer, out again tonight with a sore knee. Could they capitalize, though? Utah back at the Delta Center for the first time in 2 weeks, where Tyrese Maxey making up for Embiid's absence, feeling it early and often. Philly up 2 digits at the intermission. More Maxey, who tallied 32 at the half. The Jazz were hot to start the third, though. John Collins waiting for it, proves he has 3 in his arsenal. Simone Fontecchio to draw Utah even closer. The Jazz note would later take the lead, and it's currently a very tight game late in the third. College hoops, including Weber State, trying to break out of a funk where they've dropped 5 of 6 in the Big Sky, up 10 opening half. Blaze Threet can stroke it, but here comes Northern Arizona in Flagstaff. Jaden Jackson, just like that, game tied at 57 with just over 6 left. NAU then taking the lead, crafty reverse Carson Basham. But down 4, final minute, Dylan Jones wills the Wildcats to victory, hangs up an and one. 3 straight Jones free throws later, and Purple led. Last chance homeboys. Weber needing that one, 72-70, 26 for Jones. Over in the WAC, Utah Valley at Stephen F. Austin. The Wolverines down 11 at the break. Latrell Jossell Green rallied for the lead briefly in half 2. The Layton product, Ethan Potter, to get UVU within 1 with 90 seconds left. But the Lumberjacks right back. Frank Stain, Stephen F. holds on, 77-72. 2 games in southern Utah tonight, including the T-Birds hosting UT Arlington, trailing nearly all of this. The T-Birds in a full-court press to get back in it. Dominique Ford gets SUU within 14, but the Mavericks too much. Micaiah Williams triples. Southern Utah's 2-game win streak comes to an end, 76-68. And Utah Tech entertaining Texas Rio Grande Valley. Tanner Christensen with the high percentage. Trailblazers fire up 23-8 to start. They would build the lead back up in half 2. Angelo Kambala as Tech ends a 4-game slide, 81-64. The AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am is always fun. Some of the world's best golfers teaming up with an amateur. Tony Finau picking Ryan Smith to accompany him. Ryan has a massive home right there on the course out in God's country, so it makes perfect sense. Here's Tony, birdie roll at 7 with a nearby seal nodding his approval. The Jazz/Real Salt Lake owner taking his turn. Watch him find the cup with the wedge. The roll will do the rest. What a birdie. Back to Finau, where things got a little rough for a while. Tony chipping right over the green and back into the rough at 12. A double bogey for him there. Overall, the pair finished with a round 1 score of 2 under, tied for 59th, along with former Ute quarterback Alex Smith and his partner Mackenzie Hughes. Speaking of Alex, he once laced up for both this year's Super Bowl contenders. 7 years with the Niners, followed by 5 more with the Chiefs, before eventually getting booted out of Kansas City so a guy named Patrick Mahomes could take over. He was asked about that on the Adam Schefter Show this week.
I think Patrick had just finished his freshman year at Texas Tech, and I can remember Veach coming in, and he was Brett Veach, who is now, for everybody out there, he is the GM of the Chiefs. Huge responsibility for taking Patrick and moving up. He was in love with Patrick after his freshman year. I remember him coming in, great relationship there. He came in the QB room. He's like, "You guys got to see this guy." Like that, like, because we would always talk ball, talk college football and different stuff. And he had his eyes on him for a long time. I'll say that. And so did Andy.
Yeah, the rest is history. We'll be right back.
Thanks for being part of Fox 13 News at 9. Quickcast is up next.